What is up, my fellow Chibits? Today, I'm going to bring all of you, once again, another weekly anime review on Boku no Hero Academia. It feels so good waking up on a Sunday morning, getting my cup of coffee, and watching a new episode of this series. It makes me so happy to know when I get up on Sunday, I'm not expecting a pile of shit, I'm actually expecting something really good from Boku no Hero Academia. Now, let me explain. Once again, this episode was beautifully adapted, point by point, panel by panel, and I'm just absolutely stunned by how amazing Studio Bones, like their job they're doing on this series, production, all that. They're doing a very good job with this series, and I say it every week because I'm expecting one day to wake up sometime on a Sunday, watch the newest episode, and just see it go down a spiral and become pretty much something that is a shell of its former self. And I'm so glad Studio Bones continues to prove me wrong and slap me across the face and says, like, fuck you, Chibi, we're not doing that, we're going to do a proper adaptation. I'm just so glad that Studio Bones is doing a good job with this series, and I hope they continue this all the way to the final episode of Season 1, and hopefully we eventually get a Season 2 of the series. But enough of that. Let's, talk about this episode. And this episode, for the most part, I think is actually rather simple. And I don't think this video is going to be as long as the other videos when it comes to Boku no Hero Academia. But I will say, however, there is some discussion points I need to talk about, some main ones. Now, there was multiple points of foreshadowing in this episode, but besides that, we also have it to where the tension or the friction that has been building up between Bakugou and Izuku is finally coming to the point to where it needs to be settled. Because I think it's been rather obvious, even for anime onlys, ever since the beginning of Boku no Hero Academia's anime, and if you read the manga, you know what I'm talking about. It's been very obvious that Bakugou and Izuku have had their differences. And you also have it to where Bakugou has always thought he was better than Izuku, and Bakugou has always been all this high and mighty person, and Izuku's always been the underdog that had no quirk, and he always wanted to be a hero, even though he was bullied and always constantly put down and stuff. Pretty much, this friction that's been building up since the beginning, it eventually had to get some form of moment to where it's going to be settled, and that's what's going on here. For instance, Bakugou and Izuku are having their match against each other. For instance, Bakugou is taking out his aggression, his rage that he's been building up for these past couple episodes, finding out that Izuku now has a quirk, but also Izuku actually, how he continues to fight even if he is afraid. Bakugou doesn't really like this. It really gets under his skin. And then Izuku, he's finally learning from his past experiences. He's standing up for himself, and he's trying to do what he believes in. He's not giving up on his dream. He wants to be a hero. So this friction that's been building up is finally at that moment where it needs to be settled. And I feel like the opening song didn't really necessarily hide it that well. I think it was rather obvious if you actually watch the opening song. And I think that's the only thing that really spoils in the opening song, besides like certain fights. But the only thing it really spoils is two things, and it's definitely one of those is the Bakugou versus Izuku tension, but that's been kind of apparent since the beginning. We know that was going to happen. But the main thing that probably will shock many anime onlys, and it shocked me when I was a manga reader and I got to this point of the series, was that the actual fight, or this match between Izuku versus Bakugou, is already happening so early on in the series. Because, I mean, you go figure, this is actually very early on in a shonen, and to see something like this already brought to the table and being kind of settled, or finally going to have it start to get settled, this is actually very, very early on in the series. So I was really actually shocked when I read this part in the manga, just to see how Bakugou versus Izuku is already about to happen, and we're getting to see a matchup between these two characters that have been building up. It's kind of like a huge rivalry, like Goku and Vegeta. But besides that, however, one thing that we all need to take note of when it comes to this is that this is a training match. This is a match to where Bakugou needs to be acting like a villain, and Izuku needs to be acting like a hero. For instance, we have different teams, and the main training of this, different camp is an indoor training area to where our heroes are versus villains inside of an indoor area. And for instance, you have it to where two different teams are chosen. You have two heroes, two villains, and you have it to where they have to go up against each other and both have to try to win. For instance, the villains need to stop the heroes from getting down there and, grabbing the nuclear device. And we also have it to where heroes need to go in and try to stop the villains. And this is kind of like a training exercise to get more into the mindset of a villain and how villains think. And I love how Boku no Hero Academia does that. It's something you will not see the last of. Like, this is not the last time you'll probably see something like this, to where you need to kind of dive more into the mindset of what villains are actually thinking. Because I want you all to take note of one thing, and it's been very apparent, it was even apparent in this episode, that Izuku is not a dumbass. He is not someone that is a complete dumbass that doesn't think and doesn't think ahead about what he could possibly do to be able to defeat his opponents. Because in this episode, he actually defeats Bakugou, not with just his quirk, but he actually didn't even really use his quirk. He defeated Bakugou with being able to read Bakugou's moves, because he's constantly watched heroes throughout his entire life. He's always wanted to be a hero, and this has been shown since the first episode. He's written in notes in his notebooks and all that, his mini notebooks. He's written down all sorts of things about what different type of heroes, their weaknesses, what their strengths are, their personality, different things like that. He's done that constantly. And when you see this actually brought to the table once again in this episode, you know, like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. How, you know, Izuku is able to overpower Bakugou even if he's not using a quirk. It's because he's been studying heroes for so long, and he's been watching Bakugou for so long. The person he actually used to think was amazing because of his quirk and stuff like that. He knows how he acts or how he reacts to different situations, but he also knows his fighting style. For instance, how he went in with his right punch, and you know how Izuku used his weight against him and flipped him on his back. So it goes to show you, Izuku is not someone that will just use his quirk ability to overpower someone in the future. He will actually use his mind to overcome the different obstacles ahead of him, and it really sets him apart from so many other shonen main characters that we get nowadays when it comes to shonen, because Izuku is smart. He's not someone that is lacking a brain. He's not someone that will actually just be a dumbass and just use, oh, I'm gonna beat you up, and that's pretty much it. He actually uses his brain along with his great strength. And one of the scariest things when it comes to characters in any written literature is a character that has insane strength, which we know he does. He just can't use it right now. He has All Might strength. A character that has insane strength but also has a great mind. Just imagine this. Just picture this in your mind right now. Imagine if Light, Kira from Death Note, had his intelligence, but he had All Might strength. Just picture that. Or Saitama's strength. Just imagine Light having the strength of Saitama or All Might. You can already see how dangerous that would be. A man that has physical strength and a lot of mental power is someone that is one of the most dangerous characters to ever write in literature, because that can make them way too strong and make it to where they have no threat. There's no threat in the series. And also, it could just make a very powerful character, and sometimes that could cause issues with the writing of a series. But so far, when it comes to Boku no Hero Academia, the writer of the series, the mangaka, is doing a very good job with kind of showcasing the different sides of how, even though Izuku has a great mind and he has a lot of physical strength, he can't use this physical strength to his liking, because in this episode, we see one example why he cannot use All Might's quirk ability at this time. Because he can't control it, and if he was to go all out, like he did on the robot, he would probably kill someone. And if he was to hit, let's say, a human being with his fist without being able to control his power, and with All Might's power backing it up with his strength, like the quirk ability, One for All, you know he's going to kill someone. It would probably kill someone, or put them in the hospital, and, you know, obviously Izuku doesn't want that to happen. So because of this, Izuku has his own limiters already set. He cannot use his full strength. He's not going to be All Might in a day, but also he has this mind to make up for that weakness. So I love the balance of Izuku's mental strength and physical strength. It really adds great dynamic to his character that I really enjoyed while reading Boku no Hero Academia and now watching it in the anime. And so I feel like many anime onlys now are going to start keying in on this, of how awesome Izuku is as a main character, but also the meaning behind Deku as well, because Ochako, one of the main reasons why I like her so much and why she's one of my personal favorite characters in the series of Boku no Hero Academia is because how she's one of the main key pillars for Izuku's continued path of being a hero. Because Izuku's always been made fun of. He's always been called Deku by Bakugou. Always been made fun of. And this name that was given to him was actually an insult. Deku is an insult. And Ochako came up, started talking to Izuku, and it's like, hey, Deku doesn't sound like it actually is an insult. So Ochako was actually someone that kind of changed the outlook on the meaning of Deku. When it comes to the overall costumes and designs, one of the main costumes I like so much is definitely Great Boy's, Momo's, Ochako's obviously. I love Tsuyu's, I love Ida, there's just so many characters. Tokoyami, and most likely the anime onlys have no idea which characters I'm talking about at all. But there is one character I do want to say that stands out amongst all of these, okay? It's this right here. Great Boy is Best Boy. I've talked about this in the manga, but Great Boy is Best Boy. This image alone explains the entirety of his character. So yeah, Great Boy, Best Boy. Oh yeah, and one last thing before I end this video. All Might is fucking hilarious. When he comes through the door in the middle of the class, he's like, coming through the door like a normal person. Oh my god, fucking All Might is just too good. I fucking love All Might, and just seeing that sheet animated puts a smile on my face when I see something like that. And then, like how Izuku's design of his hero outfit, it is pretty much similar to All Might's. I just couldn't help but laugh inside, because All Might's like too obvious, because you know the way the hair is, like the antennas and stuff, it looks like All Might's hair, and then also when you have it with the mouth, the smile of All Might, it's so funny. All Might's reactions and the way he acted throughout this episode was just 10 out of 10. So with that, you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.